Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hi, welcome to the 10th session in this course HRM for non-HR managers. In the previous session, we discussed candidate interviews as the most widely used selection tool. Today, we will start our session with discussing what is employee orientation and onboarding, purpose of the orientation program, new employee departmental orientation checklist form, requisites of an effective program, and lastly, we will explore what may follow after orientation. So here we start with what is employee orientation and onboarding. You may personally vouch for it, and the textbooks also caution us that carefully selecting employees does not guarantee that they will perform effectively. Even high potential employees cannot do their jobs if they do not know what to do or how to do it. Making sure your employees do know what to do and how to do it is the purpose of orientation and training. The Human Resource Department, jointly with the candidate's department head, usually designs the company's orientation programs, but the actual delivery heavily depends on the supervisor. He or she does most of the day-to-day orienting and training. Every manager, therefore, needs to know how to orient employees effectively so that whether they are themselves involved in the execution, they can ensure the orientation and onboarding serve their purpose. We assume that you have already connected the dots from the previous chapter. The employees who have successfully cleared the selection process would be offered a job. Once they accept the offer, a formal appointment is made. When the employee joins, the process of placing the incumbent on the job and providing initial support so that they can become functional in their new position is generally known as induction or orientation and onboarding. Employee orientation and onboarding are often used interchangeably. Although induction and orientation overlap, and in some organizations there may be a single process including the two, we present them separately for the sake of clarity. We will start with an orientation. Employees' induction, also called orientation, is designed to provide a new employee with the information he or she needs to function comfortably and effectively in the organization. It is a planned introduction of the new hires to their jobs, their peers, and the company. Typically, orientation conveys three types of information. One is general information about daily work routine, reporting relationships, and stakeholders. Second is a review of the firm's operations and products or services, as well as how the employee's job contributes to the organization's needs. Third is a detailed presentation, perhaps in a brochure, of the organization's policies, work rules, and employee benefits. Let's see what is the purpose of the orientation program. Employee orientation or onboarding involves more than what most people realize. Employee orientation still provides new employees with the information they need to function, such as computer passwords and company rules. Ideally, though, it should also help new employees start getting emotionally attached to the organization. Karen Wallace explained that all employees should understand certain fundamentals of their organization: what it is trying to do, why it is doing that, and how the particular employee contributes to these efforts. Orientation conveys these messages, providing a framework that shows the new employee where he or she fits into the organization and its aims. You want to accomplish 4 things by orienting new employees. One is make the new employee feel welcome and at home and part of the team. Second is make sure the new employee has the basic information to function effectively, such as email access, personnel policies and benefits, and what the employer expects regarding work behavior. Third is help the new employee understand the organization in a broad sense through sharing information about its founders, history, current status, strategies, and vision for the future. Fourth is start the person on becoming socialized into the firm's culture, values, and ways of doing things. Getting the new employee to appreciate the company's culture and values distinguishes today's onboarding programs from traditional orientation. We now move on to discussing orientation as a process. The length of the orientation program depends on what you cover. Traditional orientation programs take several hours. The human resource specialist, or in smaller firms, the office manager usually performs the first part of the orientation by explaining basic matters like working hours, benefits, and leave provisions. It should be remembered that some of this information would have linkages with legal provisions, and the organization needs to comply with the prevailing laws. For example, working women cannot be forced to work in the late hours, although in the industries such as software and in higher positions, the women do not wish to make such an exception. Benefits and leave are also governed by laws such as maternity, for example. The orienter then introduces the new employee to his or her new supervisor. The supervisor continues the orientation by explaining the organization of the department and by introducing the person to his or her new colleagues, familiarizing the new employee with the workplace, and helping to reduce the first day anxiety. Supervisor's role is crucial in encouraging the new employee to engage in the departmental activities so that they learn the ropes and become productive soon. At a minimum, an orientation process includes information on employee benefits, personnel policies, the daily routines, company organization and operations, safety measures and regulations, and a facilities tour. New employees should receive and sign for print or internet-based employee handbooks covering matters like those. Because there is no single way to orient the new employees, a general checklist is often prepared for use within an organization. The list is given to the new employee, who can ensure that they have received all the necessary information to get them started. We present important checklist items. The employee handbook contents represent legally binding employment commitments. Therefore, employers need to point it out to the new joinees that the statements of company policies, benefits, and regulations are valid, yet different from the terms and conditions of an employment contract with individual employees. While drafting the text of employee handbooks, the employer should not insert claims that they do not intend to honor. For example, statements that imply or state that all employees have permanent job status. It might be helpful to introduce the general rules or policy provisions and encourage the employees to refer to the specific terms and conditions of their own employment contract. Employers often use technology to support orientation. For example, some employers put all or some of their orientation media on the intranet. Some organizations may also develop a virtual guided tour for the new employees to watch. You should note that there are 4 strategic choices for designing orientation program that a manager may consider. First is formal or informal. Second is individual or collective. Third is serial or disjunctive. Fourth and the last is investiture or divestiture. Some of these may sound heavy as words, but they will not once we explain each of these terms next. In an informal orientation, new hires are directly put on the jobs and are expected to acclimatize themselves with the work and the company. In contrast, formal orientation takes the new employee through a structured program. The choice between formal and informal orientation depends on the management's goals and preferences. The more formal the program, the greater the likelihood that the new hire will acquire a known set of standards. That is, the new member is more likely to think and act as expected for the role they are taking. However, an informal program is desirable to maintain individual differences. Innovative ideas to solve organizational problems and a healthy questioning of the status quo are likely to be generated by a person who has been inducted informally. Another choice to be made by the management is whether the new hires should be inducted individually or in groups. The individual approach is likely to develop far less homogeneous views than collective orientation. Individual orientation is more likely to preserve individual differences and perspectives. Orienting each person separately is an expensive and time-consuming process. It also denies the new hire the opportunity of sharing anxieties with fellow appointees. Most large firms tend to have a collective orientation approach. However, small firms which have fewer new appointees to socialize frequently use the individual approach. Individual socialization is popular even with large firms when they hire executives in small numbers. Orientation becomes serial when an experienced employee inducts a new hire. Many times, the new joinee is inducted as the departing employee is still serving the notice period. That essentially means that the given position has its outgoing and incoming employees working together. The outgoing employee acts as a tutor and a model for the new hire. When new hires do not have predecessors available to guide them or to model their behavior upon, the orientation becomes disjunctive. Each option has its advantages and pitfalls. Serial orientation maintains traditions and customs. Consistent use of this strategy will ensure a minimum amount of change within the firm over time. However, maintenance of status quo itself may breed resistance to change. Further, if the experienced employee is frustrated and apathetic towards work and the firm, it is likely that he or she would pass on some of the same to the new hire. Disjunctive orientation almost stands on the other side of the spectrum. Such induction is likely to produce more inventive and creative employees because the new hire is not burdened by traditions. However, these benefits need to be weighed against the potential for creating deviants, that is, the individuals who fail due to inadequate role modeling, to understand how their job is to be done and how it fits into the greater scheme of the company. The final strategic choice relates to the need for maintaining or dismantling of the new hire's identity. Investiture orientation seeks to ratify the usefulness of the characteristics that the person brings to the new job. Most high-level appointments follow this approach because a person is appointed as an executive by what he or she can bring to the company. The new hires are given freedom to select their office furnishing and subordinates and to make other decisions that will reflect on their performance. Divestiture orientation, on the other hand, seeks to make minor modifications in the characteristics of the new hire, albeit he or she selected based on his or her potential for the performance. Divestiture orientation, on the other hand, seeks to make minor modifications in the characteristics of the new hire, even though he or she was selected based on his or her potential for performance. This is done to seek a better fit between a new member and the firm. This fine-tuning may take the shape of requiring the appointees to sever old friendships, accepting a different way of looking at their jobs, peers, or the organization's goals. The new hire may even be made to undergo simulated or mock challenges at the hands of senior staff to verify if he or she can be molded to the requirements of the firm if needed. Divestiture strategies are followed for inducting new hires into organizations such as military, professional football, police academies, fraternal groups, religious cults, and self-realization groups. The premise behind divestiture strategies is to dismantle the old mindset of the new member so that instilling a new set of values or norms becomes easy. Orientation programs range from brief, informal introductions to lengthy, formal programs, as we have just seen. As we mentioned previously, an informal orientation, new employees are instructed to report to the HR department for an explanation of company policies before being referred to the immediate supervisor for an on-the-job briefing on specific work procedures. It tends to be brief, lasting 1 hour or even less. Formal orientation is elaborate and is spread over a couple of weeks or even months. Most formal programs consist of 3 stages. First is a general introduction to the company, often given by the HR department. Second is specific orientation to the department and the job, typically given by the employee's supervisor. Third is a follow-up meeting to verify that the important issues have been addressed and the employee's questions have been answered. This follow-up meeting usually takes place between a new employee and his or her supervisor a week or after the employee has begun working. A formal orientation program is shared by the HR specialist and supervisors. The former covers such areas as organizational issues, employee benefits and introductions, while supervisors outline mainly job duties and functioning. Some companies also provide new employees with special anxiety reduction seminars. Such seminars may be used to focus on information about the company and the job and allow opportunities for questions and answers. The new employees may be told what to expect regarding rumors from old employees. Now we move to the discussion of what may be the requisites of an effective onboarding program. After effective recruitment and selection, one of the most important ways that an organization can improve the effectiveness of the talent management systems is through strategic use of onboarding. Onboarding is the process of helping new hires adjust to the social and performance aspects of their new jobs quickly and smoothly. Effective onboarding has 4 distinct levels, which are known as 4 C's. The first C is compliance, which is the lowest level and includes teaching employees basic legal and policy related rules and regulation. Second C is clarification, which refers to ensuring that employees understand their new jobs and all related expectations. The third C is culture, which refers to a broad category that includes providing employees with a sense of organizational norms and shared values, both formal and informal. The last C is connection, which refers to the vital interpersonal relationships and information networks that new employees must establish. The building blocks of successful onboarding programs are therefore called the 4 C's. The degree to which Each organization leverages these 4 building blocks, determines its overall onboarding strategy, with most firms falling into one of the 4 levels. We will share with you the best practices for new employee onboarding. Successful onboarding is a key part of any talent management strategy. With the high cost of recruiting, business leaders must understand that effectively integrating new hires into organization is an important step to ensure their success. Understanding who owns the onboarding process as a whole and who controls various steps in the process is vital to onboarding success and sustainability over time. Simply writing down a formal plan will not help new employees succeed. The key is to engage important stakeholders and new employees in interactions that help them understand one another and how they interact over time. Used in conjunction with HRM's best practices, effective onboarding will result in a faster learning curve for the new hires, improved communication, and a more productive and engaged workforce. Some of the best practices followed by the organizations include implementing the basics before the first day on the job, making the first day on the job special, using formal orientation program, developing a written onboarding plan, making onboarding plan participatory, being sure that the program is consistently implemented, ensuring that the program is monitored over time, using technology to facilitate the process, using milestones such as 30, 60, 90 and 120 days on the job and up to 1 year post-organizational entry to check in on employee progress, engaging stakeholders in planning, including key stakeholder meetings as part of the program, being clear with new employees regarding the objectives, timelines, roles, responsibilities that they are going to handle. You may be wondering what happens after orientation and onboarding. Directly after orientation or onboarding, the employee's job training should begin. Very senior positions in the organization may be an exception to this. Training means building or honing new or current employees' skills needed to perform their jobs. As one trainer said, we sit down with management and help them identify their strategic goals and objectives and the skills and knowledge needed in the employees to achieve them. This might mean showing new web designers the intricacies of the website, new salespeople how to sell the firm's product, or new supervisors how to complete the firm's weekly payroll. It might involve simply having the current job holder explain the job to the new hire or a multi-week training process, including classroom or internet classes. In any case, training is a task that managers ignore at their own risk. As we mentioned in the beginning of this session, having high potential employees doesn't guarantee that they will succeed in their jobs. They must know what to do and how to do it. If they don't, they will improvise or do nothing useful at all. Inadequate training can also trigger liability for negligent training. As one expert puts it, it's clear from the case law that where an employer fails to train adequately and an employee subsequently does harm to third parties, the court will find the employer liable. Employers should confirm the employee's claims of skills and experience, provide adequate training, particularly where employees use dangerous equipment, and evaluate the training to ensure that the risks are being managed. One survey found that establishing a linkage between learning and organizational performance was the number one pressing issue facing training professionals. Training experts often use the phrase workplace learning and performance instead of training to underscore dual aims of employee learning and organizational performance. training has an impressive record of influencing performance. We will be discussing the training and development in detail in future. For now, we move to the close of this session. In this session, we have studied what is orientation, purpose of the orientation program, orientation process, new employee departmental orientation checklist, requisites of an effective onboarding program, best practices for new employee onboarding, and lastly, what happens after orientation. With this, we come to the end of this session in the course HRM for non-HR managers. We will see you soon. Until then, goodbye.